Hey there, I'm Jesse Hall, and I'm your host for Business Elite Brevard Edition, the podcast that brings you all of the influencers, innovators, and industry leaders from right here on the Space Coast. And here we are, live in the studio once again. Again, a beautiful day here in Space Coast of Florida. Welcome, welcome. Again, this is your host, Jesse Hall, and in the studio with me, again, we welcome Lynda Weatherman, and we're going to bring her on right away. In the meantime, we hope that you guys are having, again, a great day, great week so far. We just entered October, which means it's the last quarter of the decade. The very last quarter, we have 3 months left of 2019 and of the teens in general. And again, the purpose of today's show, as we do periodically, is to bring you the industry leaders, innovators, and influencers from right here on the Space Coast of Florida. And that's why, again, we are so privileged to have Lynda in the studio again. So welcome, everybody. Let's gonna jump right into this because we have a lot to share, but we're both very busy people. So, and I know you guys are too, our viewers. So we want to make sure that we're respectful and we get the information out in a nice expedited format, you know?
Sure.
I mean, you know, of course we could always elaborate. We could always get really deep and grind it out, you know, for a full hour. But again, I think we could be challenged to maybe get it done in maybe like 40 minutes. So there you are. Lynda, how have you been since the last time you were here?
I've been fine, been busy, working hard like everybody else.
I know you are.
Taking advantage of this economy. But thank you, Jesse. Thank you for your interest in what's happening to this county. And sometimes it seems something that, you know, the economy is not just the economy. It's the flesh and blood. It's people. It's their jobs. It's their livelihood. Yesterday we had an executive board meeting, and I was talking about the CPT program, this training program I'll talk about a little bit later. And I said, and I'm sure I read it somewhere, I'm not that clever, but I read something, I said, you know, economic development is not just corporate relocation, it's having jobs for people to have a good living, and we're hopefully we can play a role in changing people's lives one job at a time. So
I like that. That's a good mantra.
Thank you.
If you were to,
yeah, but it's but again, it's so what could be seen as something not very emotional or not very social. It's more important. You can't do anything till you have a good job.
I totally understand that.
Yeah,
and a lot of people don't, you know, they find self-worth. They find value in themselves when they're proud of what they do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know what it is to be those days when you're looking for a job. And that's why to this day, if somebody's looking for a job and if I have a chance to meet one, even if there's not an opening, I know how looking for a job, you're such a miserable feeling.
It's tough.
And you just need someone, even if that just listens to you and respects and gives it a dignity. So hopefully we're able to create a dynamic, working with our partners, that we create more opportunities for people, not just their first job, but their second job, and as they work their way up and stay in Brevard County and Space Coast with all their talent.
And I think there's lots of room to get elevated and to improve, you know, climb that corporate ladder, so to speak. I think the biggest opportunities here are definitely within some of the aerospace, but even manufacturing. You know, if you start as an assembler, like there's still so much more opportunity if you do what you do, spend the time, and you could graduate.
Jesse, I am so glad that you said that. That is so, because first of all, the EDC's market is manufacturing technical. We don't do the second tier. There's nothing wrong with them, but the dynamics are you only drive so far for some milk. So the dynamics have to be there. You'll drive so far for a bread. So we don't create the dynamics. We create the foundation that creates the opportunity to attract grocery stores and what we call the second tier economy. So our focus, there's an economic reason why we focus on manufacturing. But the other great thing about manufacturing, not only does it usually pay more on average than the other, quote, industries that they have according to the Department of Labor, but I tell people it's probably one of the most dynamic industries that you could start packing boxes. And if you're capable and you're focused, you could be a CNC machinist making $100,000 in 3 or 4 years.
That's
and there's
amazing.
Training funds out there. Really, where do you get that? You don't need a college degree. So unless you go to finance, if you go to be a teacher, you go into retail, you don't have those incremental steps, and it's such a great thing. And I'm very, very excited about what we're doing for the workforce of the area. And again, we'll talk about that later after we talk about the more traditional stuff.
Listen, I know you just have a lot to share. So that's why I bring you on, because you have a very powerful message, and that's why it's so exciting to have you come on periodically. So let's start again with since the last time we spoke, some of the whatever little bit of landmark kind of things that may have happened.
Yeah, we're talking about we met the last 3 months, 3 or 4 months. I will tell you the things that pop up to me, and there's a number of things we do, but the one we're most associated with is is corporate relocation and attraction. And within a 2-week period, maybe 10-day, we announced 2 corporate headquarters, one being Boeing, Space Systems,
awesome,
and the other one being Lockheed Martin's Fleet Ballistic Missile Program.
Yes.
Talk about and that what that shows you is the maturing of our economy, so that we could be more of a magnet for headquarters. And why headquarters are important is those are where you're making your decisions about future growth. One of the challenges we have is we don't have a lot of corporate headquarters. So somebody in another state, maybe in another country, are making long-term decisions about corporations, whether it's in Brevard County or Detroit or Palo Alto. So that's why it's important for us to have a strong relationship with our existing companies.
Right.
But if they're headquartered here, a lot of the focus is going to be on here. The legal teams are here. The marketing teams are here.
All the executives.
Yes,
absolutely,
exactly.
Yeah.
They're all located there. In regards to the Boeing, that is just the hard work that this community has done to attract more activity tied to space that created dynamics to bring the headquarters here. And that was announced, quite frankly, by out of state by the president of Boeing Corporation.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
it shows you it's important to them.
Right.
The Fleet Ballistic Missile of Lockheed Martin, and they're also in the North Brevard area. Very excited about that. Fleet Ballistic Missile it's kind of if you look at the story of Brevard County, it went into the old USA building. Now, if you remember, USA was a United Space Alliance was that co-venture between Lockheed Martin and Boeing to do shuttle work and stuff like that, and launches. And then it kind of went away because the market went away. It sat fallow for a while, and now it's the next generation. So truly repurposing the building, that's very reflective of the first quarter, quite frankly, of the 21st century, because this is a program, a Navy program, that will be around 60 to 80 years.
Yeah, so we were able to relocate them from California, where they were originally.
Yeah, they're out of Sunnyvale, California. That's why we called it the raising of the flag. But the story is beyond that. Now, we did go to California. We did make the pitch. Right. And I tell people who are listening, we tend to think, who wouldn't want to live here? Well, if you live in California, you love your state. We always go respectful. I mean, there's some EDCs years ago. What they did this, and I thought, well, it was not only is it rude, but it's going to backfire you. I don't know if you remember, there was a a state that did. I can't recall the state. Somewhere in the Midwest, but it was. Remember when California had the energy crisis? And this was about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Well, they sent them flashlights. Now, the last thing you want to do is annoy someone who might be 3 generations back in California.
Right.
You don't want to, look, we're Philistines. We want to exploit the opportunities, but you don't do it so in their face and such cheek. It really backfired on them. So when we go to these companies and we make a pitch to the employees that maybe ask to relocate, we never assume, of course you want to come here. They have fundamental I'm uprooting my family to a place in Brevard County. Now, where is that?
Right.
Titusville, Vieira, what's that going on? It's Cocoa Beach, and their vision of Florida A is probably out of date.
Right.
And Brevard County is probably out of date, because what we don't have in this county, which is something the EDC wants to do with our partners, and we're talking about next year, is to start promoting a common brand placing. And by that I mean, I talked about it a little bit before, and then we'll get into. I want to talk to you about the Fleet Ballistic Missile Program. This is a wonderful program. It was 20 years in the making, quite frankly.
Right.
But to go back to brand placing, when you talk, and I'm not a brand person. I'm not a marketing person, but I know what I don't know, so I've done a lot of focus on this. But if you mention Austin, you immediately have some emotional idea of what it is. It might be right, it might be wrong, but you have something. What we have, I think, if you went out, and I talked to a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people in this nation. I talked to a lot of industrial America. I talked to people all over the world. And there isn't something, if it comes up, it's a little bit out of date. It's the 60s, it's the 80s. It's, you're still doing launching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we need to have a community conversation, how we tell the story. Now, let me get back, if you don't mind, Jesse, to the Fleet Ballistic Missile.
No, that's important. Let's do that.
Because it goes to show you, again, nothing happens overnight. Everything, it's like your career and this every day you're going to work hard in this podcast, and it's going to grow and grow day by day.
Sure.
It doesn't happen overnight. And the same thing to bring this headquarters, which I will tell you, I believe in all my heart that the Fleet Ballistic headquarters in Titusville will be the equivalent of what Embraer was to South Brevard.
Oh, very cool.
In the mid-teens, tens, in regards to jobs, capital investment, and traction of supply chain. But basically, what happened is in 2000. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. Maybe it was 03 or 04. There was the base realignment and closure. That was part of. They did one in 91. They did one in, I think, a smaller one in 01. But there was one in 01. This was the base realignment closure, and this is basically where the Pentagon goes and they look and say, look, what bases are we going to close? What can we shutter? They have millions of square feet of inventory. It's very expensive. We can consolidate services. It makes a lot of sense. And it makes a lot of sense until it's your company, until it's your base they're going after. So there's a time where you can make your case. It makes a case about, the involvement and importance of it. But fast forward, basically, the Naval Ordnance Test Unit, which is the Navy arm, they were the contractor, was on the BRAC list, okay? It wasn't like threatened. It was on the list to be closed and consolidated to, I think it was St. Mary's in Southeast Georgia. Well, to reverse a BRAC decision is, I've been told, the equivalent of winning an appeal, which is the less than 10%. It's very, very, very hard. Right. We were able to reverse it. We reversed it because we felt the criteria they used really wasn't reflective of the BRAC criteria. Anyway, by keeping the Naval Ordnance Test Unit in Brevard County, and we don't see it because it's the other side of the fence, we were able to work with the Navy and Lockheed Martin to bring more opportunities here. The Strategic Weapon Systems Ashore was a consolidation of NO2. We brought the Center of Excellence. So anyway, it created the dynamics and the critical mass to make the argument that, yes, it's effective to bring here. But there's no way on God's green earth a fleet ballistic missile program would be here if the NO2 had moved. Heck, it might be in St. Mary's right now.
Oh, wow.
So but understand that is winning something that might have seemed a little esoteric that we got recognized to do. Yay, good old EDC, and that was forgot the next day, and building upon that for 20 years. So it was an overnight success in 20 years, if you want to call it.
Yeah, everybody sees the tip of the iceberg and not the not underneath it. I love those little cliches. There's everything under the water that people don't see.
Right.
All the hard times, the trials, tribulations. And people just focus on what is observable, the very top of this iceberg. Listen, and that's a great accomplishment, and we applaud you. That was huge. Tell us who is now occupying the VAB.
That is working a lot with some of our contractors, and we've got Blue Origin, I think, is involved in that. Forgive me, I got behind and all. I work mostly with the manufacturing side of it, and the next generation of the commercial space activity that's taking place there. Keep in mind, we also have what we call the ONC building, which was an old building that the EDC worked to try to get some funds from the state, because the state was a great partner, and we're building the Orion there, and now that's ready to get launched. So there's a lot going on there with. So while the VAB is very much iconic, and we have commercial activity going there, a lot of these other facilities, ONC being one of them, and if you're out on the base, you know what I'm talking about. You remember that old crusty building? Well, now it's being used. So anyway, it's a lot of those buildings are being repurposed in the same way the United Space Alliance building was in the Titusville side.
Yeah, having all of this new energy come into the Cape is just overwhelming. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and I think it's just the first wave. We've been able to, and I might have mentioned this last time, forgive me, in economic development, we always talk about the diversification of an economy. It doesn't happen. It's very hard to happen. I mean, it's very difficult. How do you change an economy, an EDC? Any EDC I'm talking about, I don't care what your budget is, but actually so you can't really diversify, and it certainly takes more than a generation. But what's happening here is we truly are diversifying, but we're diversifying from within an industry sector, where we did a lot of launch. The VAB was an example of that, where you need that for preparing for launch. So where we did Launch, maybe come in, check out the satellites a little bit, check out the launch vehicles a little bit, get them ready for launch. That was really what we did, and it was great, and it was historical, but that's all it was. There wasn't a lot of value added on there. But if I can give you an example, talk about what's located. We located the Blue Origin, the Glen Rocket here. Okay, that's here. That allowed us to make the argument for the supply chain. One argument, there's a lot more arguments than that, to get OneWeb. OneWeb will be the satellites that get on there. Now we got a Swiss, the French company. Now we got a Swiss company that builds products that will go on the OneWeb satellite, that will go on the rocket, that will be launched from here. That didn't happen before. So that's the diversification. That creates a far more intensified economic impact on the economy. And you will see that modest, maybe not as profound as that, but you will see that supply chain starting to develop with small satellites, launch operators, and then you'll start seeing some of the software developers. And then what we want to do is start going after the finance behind that and the insurance companies.
Yeah. Well, it looks like there's lots to task ahead of you.
But it's competitive. I mean, I always want to remind people that years ago, the only launch site we had years ago, was at our Cape and Vandenberg, which did the polar launches. Well, now, Jacksonville has, I think, a vertical launch. Look what's going on in Texas for SpaceX, New Mexico, everybody. And I haven't got into the international.
Right.
The Long March from China is doing it. You've got the Caribbean. Everybody. So even we cannot for 1 minute just say, oh, good, we've brought the launch industry back. Let's continue. Let's start working at the other supply chain opportunities. We've got to still focus and make a real good argument. This is a good, effective, cost-effective place to launch, and that's the partnership that we have with the Air Force and their focus on bringing all of the 48 launches.
Yeah. Launch every week.
Yeah.
That's the promise.
And now they have the March to 48, which is I think they might be done next year. So it's every week, and then we'll see more than that. So
exactly. Yeah. So to keep the ball rolling, let's talk about what is going on immediately that people may be able to see before the end of the year. Well,
there's a number of things we're doing. Of course, we're working projects, and those are I don't ever want to say there'll be announcements soon or anything, and they're not. We're working projects. They're all competitive. They're dog fights. We're working a lot of existing companies. One of the things that we have coming up is our annual meeting, October 16th. What I will be doing will be sharing some awards and recognizing people beyond the first responders, economic development. But there's people that play a significant role in economic development behind the scenes. A lot of volunteers that we need to recognize. And we have 2 awards that we'll be passing out. And then also it's a chance for me to sort of talk to the members of the EDC and the public at large that would like to attend about what we want to see for the next year, what we want to see for the next 5 years. A couple of years ago, I spoke about the difference between a transactional economic development program and a transformative. And I was explaining why we're not just transactional. It's not a corporate relocation and we walk away for the next one.
Right.
That these corporate relocations are tied into what we do for talent recruitment, tied into what we're doing for our military and industrial base there, tied into what we're doing for workforce development, tied in what we're doing for communities of choice. So, and it's truly, and when you have that approach, that interrelated approach, you have a transformation of the economy. And I was so pleased with the reaction, because sometimes I write these and I think, I'm so, yeah. And I think sometimes I lost them. Anyway, this year we're going to be talking about the strategic plan of the EDC. And and I never had a chance to really unveil. We've always had a strategic plan. It's always developed by not just me, but input from myself and my staff, but also calibrated and really developed by the executive board members and board members. They're the ones that see the economy from a perspective that I can't. I see it from theirs, and we bring it together. And they talk to their clients. They talk to the business community. They talk to their peers. When they come back, they'll say, this is what the EDC needs to do. Right. So I'll be unveiling that. It truly is a living, breathing document.
I feel like it needs to be.
Exactly. Yeah. But in economic development, it's not a lot. I've always been a little bit, I don't say dismissive of strategic plans, but when you pick them out, they all basically say the same thing. Right. Job growth, diversification, increased wages. It's what you do in those focus areas that sets you apart. And that's why our focus areas, always 3 to 4 years, they change, and they're reflective of the times. We had a focus area on workforce. I think it was added 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think there's many EDCs that even would say workforce in their strategic plan. Now, they're saying it now,
Right.
but we were saying it before time. We're talking about a SNAP, a quick accelerated permitting program when the economy went down, because we thought this is the time to start looking into working with our partners in the government, city and the county to say, what can we do when the times get right again to make a more effective, fast, accelerated permitting process while things are quiet. So, but that was reflective time. So, and now the other one, the one we're adding is called communities of choice. What do we need to do in the next few years? I mean, this economic revival that we're having, it's not a bubble. It is true. It's foundational, and it is structural. How are we going to benefit as a community from this?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because people do ask, you know, is this a bubble? Why are rents continuing to rise? Why are home prices? This is what I get in my industry, and it's got to burst sometime soon. Like it just can't be sustained.
Well, part of it, and I'm certainly not the expert. I think you would call the Association of Realtors would be a really good one to talk about the home situation. But part of what happens, we went through the deepest, longest recession.
Exactly.
Housing market was a subprime market. There was a lot of development. Then it stopped cold dead. Okay, no development was going on.
Right.
During that process, that no houses were being they had inventory they had to eat up. So you had this extra inventory, but during that process, a phenomena happened in Brevard County. Umbriere expanded. Northrop Grumman added 1,000 jobs with Project Blue, the Manned Surveillance Center of Excellence. These are all projects that EDC worked on. 2 years later, 1,800 jobs. I mean, a lot of jobs came, not to talk about what's going on the Space Center, Blue Origin, OneWeb. So those were almost happening when the inventory was shrinking. So now we leapfrogged the inventory, and now you'll see it's settle itself out.
Oh yes, I mean new subdivisions are going up everywhere. It's very exciting. If some people don't like all the growth, but I think because that's just a byproduct of becoming the number one space facility in the world.
Let me talk about that, about growth. Florida is growing. Mm-hmm. Florida will continue to grow. Florida, show me, I think there might have been one time in 50 years, ever since the air conditioning became ubiquitous in homes, Florida was going to grow. The question is, what kind of growth do you want? Do you want economic development, or do you just want growth? Do you want people just to come here with fixed incomes, and you have an economy based on fixed income salaries? There's nothing wrong with that, but do you want that? I mean, I'm not making a judgment. Do you want that, or do you want to have a structure that pays good in taxes, that people can come in? If you want your kids to come back home and get a job, they can be here. So it is going to grow, and we want, as a community, and it's the right choice, we want to make this the best possible opportunity we can for the citizens. And that means you're able to find a job, you can pay your taxes, we'll have parks, we can clean our rivers up, as opposed to just looking to see what happens and who comes into town. And
well, we certainly don't want to be that resort town where everybody just comes to retire and then. Well,
I'm not going to make a judgment on that. I made a career on the other argument, but when you have a town we have a great tourist economy, but if you have a town that's solely dependent on tourism, then the next time someone a visitor gets shot or hurt, or there's a fire, that goes down. Next time there's a hurricane, that goes down.
Oh yeah, shark bites. I mean, there's a lot of things that will keep people away.
It's too volatile, and if you want to have just an economy based on people coming in, your economy will grow. Here's how it will grow. They will come here and they will go shopping, and our retail sales tax will help because we have that.
And that's what I'd like to see. We're seeing a lot of younger faces, in our community now, which is just huge. Mm-hmm. And culture is improving because of that. We have. New kind of businesses and new concepts, starting up all around the Space Coast that is provided for, some of these, this new talent that's showing up. And this is great because they're going to be here for a couple of generations. Granted that they like their job, they stay with their job, they raise their family. They may be lifers.
Yeah, and I think we have to remind ourselves when we start thinking, oh, this growth, how bad things could be and how bad things were. Go back and look at the newspaper articles. Go back and look. If you're doing emails, if you were doing in 2006, it was scary. I was sat on the Federal Reserve. I saw the numbers. There are communities that still not have rebounded from that.
No.
So we should embrace this and be joyful that we have this. It's not always going to be this heated. It thinks like anything else. It's a living, breathing beast, this economy.
Right.
But you need to have the insurance that you'll sustain through the hard times too.
Yeah.
We have this. Remember this. There used to be a saying that if DC sneezed, we get a cold because we're so dependent on the economy in the federal government, particularly with defense. We're offsetting that now with a lot of the commercial activity, and I mean in aviation too, not just on space.
Well, because now we are, having a big influx of private, when you have Bezos and the Elon Musks spending their money here.
Yeah.
That's longevity because these people, it's not a finite budget. If that makes sense.
Exactly. But the challenge we have is as they're spending their money, they have a very tight margin. So they're going to look and they're going to find the most cost-effective place to do business. That's why we constantly have to be aggressive about telling our story.
Right.
And the other thing, number two, is they're going to find out these are 30, 40, 50-year decisions.
Right.
So you need to find out, what am I going to do to bring my workforce? Not only what are you going to do to bring a workforce here, like creating our workforce, but what can company X, whether it's a Blue Origin or an ABC company, what are they going to do to attract that competitive labor and have them come here? Again, let's not assume they all love Brevard County.
Right. I mean,
we got to make our case for
when
that.
you're choosing between, Palo Alto and a really hip Austin, and there's some other communities that are certainly attractive. They have a familiar climate.
Austin, Nashville, now the new hot city to go to.
It is hot.
Yeah, it is. It's and as I told my board once, and
it's $1,000 a night to stay up there.
Yeah, and that's and they did something to get people there. But you know what? It's worth it if they're getting the talent they need, and that is the war that we have on now.
Right.
So we need to start not only telling our story, having a common brand, but we need to help our companies when they go to get these people coming in, making nice wages, and coming in and adding to the community, because they're competing for this labor not just nationally but globally too.
Right.
Brevard County, we love it. It's a beautiful place. People don't know that much about it. And here's the other thing too: is I tell my board, and I'm not trying to be cheeky here, but we're just not really sexy. So we need to.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not.
But we're getting better all the time.
We are getting better. We are better. We're working out. But my point was, and we don't want to be false about it. The beautiful thing about Brevard County, it's uniqueness. And I think the best thing about Brevard County is its scalability. You tell a young person, come here, raise your family, you will truly have an impact on this county. Whether the impact is with your church, with social endeavors, political endeavors, environmental endeavors, you will have more an impact than anything you can in any other place you go to. We want to hear from you. We value your input. Go to Austin and you'll be, I don't know, you'll have an impact.
You'll be a small fish in a really big pond.
Yeah, and I think that says something. And yet we have the intellectual infrastructure of a major urban area. You don't have that combination very often in many cities. In fact, I can't think of any.
Right. But
this area. So it's great, but it's always a fight.
And of course, we knew this was going to be a predicament. The clock is showing just under 10 minutes. So we haven't even gotten to, so let's make this quick. In about 3 minutes, what... it's not going to be 3 minutes. I'll give you 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, I'll say 20 minutes worth.
The last decade of what happened here on the Space Coast. We kind of just, went through, after the recession and post-recession with, Breyer. But what were some of your most proudest accomplishments in last decade?
Last decade, maybe 12 years, go a little bit beyond that. I think these are the ones that stick in my mind. And there are so many things that are important and structural change in like our workforce program, but for corporate relocation and business development, the Orion coming here.
Yes.
That was the first time in the history of the state of Florida. Florida, not Space Coast, Florida, that we're bringing the assembly work of a launch vehicle. It sent a large, strong message to industrial America that we can compete and win. Embraer was so important at the time. It was the hitting of the recession. We hadn't, and Orion was sort of on the other side of the fence. We don't see that very often when we see that activity taking place because we don't go there very often.
Right.
So it's not in our mind. But Embraer started with 200 jobs. It was a 3-2 vote by the county commissioner. It was very close to being lost. And now it's at 1,000 jobs and diversified, and we're bringing engineering work here. Northrop Grumman. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jesse.
Well, speaking of Embraer, I've seen some of their future development. Speaking with our partners over there at the Melbourne airport, and they're expanding. Embraer is like consuming a lot more acreage, and they're going to be having their own kind of blast terminals. Where they're going to test the engines. They're going to be, so they're expanding. They're building that whole northern boundary around the airport.
Let's remember what they were. What the first announcement was.
Right.
It was just 200 jobs, 220, building their Phenom 100 and 300.
Right.
That was the thin edge of the wedge. The next one was looking at their engineering center, which, quite frankly, they could put anywhere. There's no really dynamic reason where it's an office with a lot of an office with smart people. I mean, tell me, I could be in Nashville. Gosh, our boogeyman.
Right.
But having that presence helped us. That was another 200 jobs or so. Then came the sales center, which was part of the Phenom that came also concurrently with that. But then came the Legacy 450, 500.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are 1,000
nice.
jobs.
Right.
They are a long-term plan. Third biggest. Now they have the co-venture with merging with the Boeing, which brings them even more
exciting
depth here. Now, of course, the OneWeb is interesting. That was exciting because that was a really intense international competition, French company.
Oh, I bet. And that's quite the initiative. OneWeb, we're talking about how many satellites in orbit?
Yeah, about 900. It was beyond my pay grade to understand what they do. But
Right.
it's a beautiful story what they want to do. I encourage you to have someone coming on and tell their story.
Yeah,
it's
if you're listening, OneWeb, come on.
And of course, Blue Origin,
Yeah.
the work we've done with SpaceX in regard to making sure we had launch activities. One of the things the EDC did years ago is we competed at the state level for some defense grants. We were able to win it and help develop a launch pad to bring a gaseous pipeline to the space pad that they're now using. So,
which is incredible.
Yeah,
Like, people don't know the significance of that, but that's pretty huge.
Yeah, I didn't know we could do something like that. I mean, my staff is amazing.
Well, we were landing. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We were
shaking my hand.
landing. Oh no,
Yeah.
you're not dismissed.
Yeah.
We were landing these drones on barges in the water. Now we're landing 2 of these boosters simultaneously on launch pads.
And it wasn't that long ago.
Right.
I mean, usually you think, oh my God, 50 years later you can get that accomplished. That shows you the lightning speed that's taking place in space.
Right.
And that means the lightning speed this EDHC has to respond.
Right.
Because tomorrow when we all of a sudden they discover that satellites can be the size of a fly, I don't know, that probably will happen, we better understand who those companies are.
Right.
We better understand how to respond to them. We have to understand their product cycle, their life cycle, the supply chain tied to this. So it's really intense. It's like keeping up with an industry. Imagine you want to keep track of the PC industry in 1979, 80, 89. I mean, think of the changes. Oh, I'm going after this company. It's called a Laserdisc, and we're going to relocate them. And then you realize, it's not happening. So you just have to be on top of this industry so much, and aviation and all other industries, advanced manufacturing and such.
So, in short, amazing 10 years. I mean, this has been an
Exhausting
incredible decade.
Yeah.
So now that we're getting into the 20s, and I told you, I want to coin it as instead of roaring 20s, the soaring 20s.
I think it's so clever.
What's coming up, and what could we expect maybe in the next 10 years?
Well, continue to work with aviation companies, continue to work with space-related companies. They're all not going to be...
Are we going to Mars in 10 years?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I just, if there's a company that will help them, I'll be talking to them.
Yeah.
It's amazing what's going on with it's Mars and what we're going to do. But, I think they're not all going to be the Blue Origin SpaceX we recognize. There's a lot of companies that we just don't know that play a significant role, whether it's supply chain or direct satellite manufacturing. Look at Firefly that's doing launch and operations, small sats and things like that. So we'll continue to talk to them. I also think it's a time where, and I'm really excited about 2020, but it's also a time where we as a community need to reflect on what we want to do in the future.
Right.
And, look, the EDC does economic development. We focus on manufacturing. But we're not alone in this. We have our partners, the Chambers of Commerce, Lead Brevard, United Way, where we need to get together, the business leaders, the community leaders, all areas, and get together and say, look, we need a vibrant downtown, and we want to keep that vibrant downtown, and it's important to us.
And it's growing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting a couple, apartment complex, a new hotel, another boutique hotels being talked about. And it's all byproduct of the growth that has happened, the opportunities that you've been enabling, which has been just so profound. I think, I mean, I've been here since '95, and the last 5 years have probably been the most exciting. You know, it's been such a tremendously proud moment. I mean, I've just been just generally proud of our little community.
And again, if you see the size, exactly, this little community, again, this little community has a little EDC, okay?
Right.
It's reflective of the size of this community. There's nothing wrong with it. But you know what our competition is? It's not communities our size. Our competition is Singapore. Our competition is Atlanta, Charlotte, and this little EDC.
Huge hubs.
We have a fraction of their budget. So we just have to be... We somebody once said that what is that saying? You fight above your weight class.
That's right.
And we do, and it's just the way it is. And I hope that the community's proud that we're able to do it and not use the size of our unlimited budget as a reason not to have it. But I do think it's time where the community needs to look and see, what are we going to do? This is a good opportunity.
Well, you mentioned budget. Is there like an action, like if you were to put it out there with our audience, like say, if you would like to be a donor to the EDC, I mean, there's opportunities for that.
Yeah, and the way that we're structured is no different than any other EDC in the country. And now our tactics are quite different. And that's why I think sets us apart. Basically, we were, a public and a private contributions. We have a contract with the county that allows us. I'm very proud that this county has taken a role and responsibility in economic development.
Thank goodness.
You have two choices.
Great job, commissioners.
Thank you, commissioners. They have two choices. We could have in 1996, because remember, it was tough times then too. It was the right sizing, government layoff, and everything like that. You had two choices. You could try to attempt to get control of your economic future and economic destiny, or you're dirty, poor, and vulnerable. And this county commission chose not to take that route. The easiest route, we can't help it, nothing we can do, by funding the EDC with a contract and the grant, and we're very proud of that.
Exactly.
We are able to do what we do in regards to the marketing and leverage that whole program. That's just the base of operations with the budget through private sector investments. And I would love to talk to companies. I'd love to talk to individuals that look around and say, wow, I see things are happening in my business. It happened because this EDC worked to bring about 16,000 jobs in the last 10 years that have a capital investment of $1.2 billion. I might be off by 1 or 2 billion, but 1 or 2, maybe by a fraction. 2/10 of a billion. But that's the reason it does not happen on its own. It does not. We can't sit there and wring our hands and hope that things happen. It is a dogfight. This EDC is there to fight for our business community, but we need help to be able to do more because it's harvest time now.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you guys do a fundraising effort?
We're going through. We do like one. We have a fundraising committee.
Okay.
And I spent some time. Probably need to spend more time talking to companies, making the case to have the investment in.
Sure.
We'll be making a stronger initiative in 2020 to be able to say, look, you see this, and basically, here's the analogy I use. We are a small, modest-sized EDC, but we really, really worked. Well, and maybe this is a silly analogy, but maybe it's because I'm...
But you may be a small dog, but you guys got a big bark.
Well, yeah, and we had to, especially working at the state level. We're like Chihuahua, just chewing that ankle till they give us attention. But what it is, it's look at it this way. We're an EDC, and we finally have been working and getting that crop and that wheat, and now the wheat is there. It's time to harvest. Well, guess what? We need some funds for a combine. Because we gotta, if that's the right tool, then I don't know my farming tools. But now it's harvest time. We need to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented from the years of work that this community did and this EDC did. So
I totally agree. No, trust me. It would be of disservice not to bring it up. So lastly, without even a break, Lynda, it's already been 40 minutes. But we need, and you mentioned, workforce a lot, and we mentioned that the last time. Real quick, what are some of the advancements in workforce? Are we in the high schools? I think we were in O'Galley last time we talked. Are we? Is 2020 going to be the year where the from FIT to the local high schools and even some, are we going to get like a trade school here? I mean, what's going on?
I'll tell you that the EDC has had a workforce program. Now you might think, big whoop. Well, it is a big whoop for EDCs to do it. No EDC was doing it. Beginning in 2016, developing a foundational entry-level certification for people going into manufacturing. Someday I'd like to spend 40 minutes on that.
Sure.
So I have spent a lot of time in the last, I would say 15, maybe to 18 months, where traditionally I spoke to the facilities people, I spoke to finance people. You know what I'm talking to all the time now? The HR people.
Oh, good.
Okay. The HR and the talent recruitment, because I need to make sure that when they're here, that they're going to be able to recruit. I need to know what their skill mix is. I need to know what their timing. So I think things are improving. The governor announced by 2030 that this will be the most premier, technically astute, I don't know what the correct term is, workforce economy in the country. So what do they say? For challenges, recognition is the first step towards recovery.
Yes.
So I think we recognize we need to do it. We have a lot of partners in this area. There's always room for improvement. I would say we need to look at best cases. Right. We work very closely with our Brevard Public Schools. They get it. Right. They're bringing more programs in there. We're working closely with Eastern Florida and other colleges too.
Awesome. Yeah,
because it's not just, I was in a meeting yesterday and somebody referred K to 20. Yeah, we always hear K to 12. They referred to a coding program that they had as K to 20. So I thought, oh my God, that's what the EDC needs to look at. We need to make sure that supply is meeting demand and addressing at the K through 20 level.
I like it. So, and then lastly, you guys still have a beautiful campaign called Salute to Our Military. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll go to close.
Yeah, thank you. We have long work, as I said earlier, with our military, and we need to, as a community, this is led by the EDC, and we have the initiatives, and we have the prototypes, and we have the stickers, and we have bumper stickers, and all the other product literature for that, and they just have to call our office, 321-638-2000. We'll get them copies of it. But this is a community that's unique to any other. We truly recognize our military and the families. I grew up as a military family. I know it is from being pushed. I mean, I went to 3 different 5th grades. I never went to a school grade. Full school year, 1 year through the end, until like I was in late junior high. And that's what these people are. They don't know Brevard County when they get picked up and they get their notice for relocating. So we want to send a message as soon as they get here that you're important to us. And here's why. Not only is it the right, good, honorable thing to do, but it's critical that the Air Force keeps their airmen and their families happy, because they need to retain their talent just the same way as corporate America. So if they come to an area here and they see that we recognize it and we honor them and we recognize their contribution, they're going to remember this place, and maybe they'll retire here, and maybe they'll say, "Look, I like it here. I think I'll stick around for a while."
Now you're talking. Well, so great campaign. How can somebody maybe get involved with the Salute Our Military? I mean, do you guys have events coming up?
We have a Defense Alliance. It's a community. There also is, by the way, the Chicago Chamber of Commerce. We're not alone in this recognition of the military. They have the Military Affairs Council. Look them up. Look at our webpage. We have a whole section on the military and the Salute the Military campaign. I would also ask Daniel Ciro's our chair. He'd be a wonderful guest here to talk about it.
Well, let's bring him on next time. Again, this is a quarterly installment that we're doing with the EDC of Florida Space Coast. And certainly any of the board members, any of your sponsors, more welcome to come along with you.
These this is me. It's my job. But there's so many volunteers that support what the EDC does, and they do it as a volunteer. And I think it's important to hear from their perspective, too.
Let's do it. Let's bring them on maybe in January.
Great, Jesse. Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, what an action-packed 45 minutes or so, right? So we kept it under an hour. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and certainly check on all of our other episodes that we've done here at the Business Elite Brevard Edition, where we look at the innovators, industry leaders, and influencers of industry here on the Space Coast. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of the week and a great holiday season. We'll rejoin Lynda in 2020. But in the meantime, like I said, give us a like on Facebook. Make sure you review the previous episodes. And until next time, be successful. Have a great time. Treat each other good. And rock on the Space Coast. Take care, guys.